Birthdays are supposed to bring families together, but in my family, they always came with hidden storms. A week before my father's birthday, my mother cornered me in the kitchen. Her tone was sharp, her eyes piercing with disappointment. "You can't even afford your dad's birthday dinner," she hissed, arms crossed tightly across her chest. "Don't embarrass us by pretending you can. Let your uncle handle it or we'll go somewhere simple. You'll only humiliate yourself if you try." Her words weren't just casual remarks. They were daggers, sharpened over years of belittlement. Every syllable carried the same message she had been drilling into me since I was a teenager. "You're not good enough. You'll never amount to anything. You're a failure compared to everyone else." I tried to stay calm, but her tone ignited old wounds. Memories flooded back, her laughter when I failed my first business pitch, the way she compared me to my cousins with stable jobs and big salaries, the scorn in her voice when I once mentioned opening a restaurant of my own. "You, a businessman?" She had laughed. "You can't even manage your own life. Stop living in a fantasy." Yet here I was years later, standing in front of her, letting her words stab me again. My father entered the room quietly, holding a newspaper. His shoulders were hunched. His face aged with silent endurance. He didn't defend me, he never did. Not because he didn't care, but because he had learned that silence was the only way to survive her storms. But this time something inside me shifted. I didn't argue back. I didn't defend myself. Instead, I allowed her to believe what she wanted, because I had been preparing for this moment for years. Behind the mask of her so-called failure son was a truth I hadn't shared with anyone, not even with my father, the man I loved more than anything. A truth that, when revealed, would turn this family dinner into the most unforgettable night of our lives. That night, as I lay awake in bed, I stared at the ceiling, replaying her words in my mind. Her laughter, her scorn, her cruelty. They no longer hurt me the way they once did. Instead, they became fuel. Fuel for the fire I had been building quietly, silently, away from her critical eyes. I thought of my father's tired smile, of the way he never got the celebrations he deserved because my mother believed showing love was weakness. I thought of how many birthdays had been reduced to arguments, bitterness, and tension. This year things would be different. This year he would finally feel valued. And most importantly, this year, my mother would finally learn that the son she had dismissed and ridiculed was no longer the same man she thought she controlled. What was the secret I had been hiding all these years? And how would a single dinner expose it in front of everyone? The night of my father's birthday finally arrived. The city was alive with lights, cars moving in endless streams, and laughter spilling from cafes and street corners. But inside our car, the silence was suffocating. My father sat in the back seat, dressed neatly in his best suit, though I could tell it was years old. He looked nervous, as if unsure whether tonight would truly be a celebration or another disappointment. My mother, on the other hand, was restless. She kept glancing at me from the passenger seat, her eyes sharp with suspicion. "Where exactly are you taking us?" she finally demanded. "Don't tell me you made some foolish reservation at one of those high-end restaurants you can't afford." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, hiding the smile threatening to appear on my lips. "Don't worry," I said evenly. "Everything is taken care of." Her scoff filled the car. "Taken care of? Please. You've never been able to take care of anything. Just don't embarrass us in front of strangers. Your father deserves dignity, at least for one night." Her words stabbed, but this time they didn't wound me. Instead, they fueled the anticipation building in my chest. She had no idea what awaited her. She had no idea that tonight her cruel narrative about me, the sun who could never succeed, was about to shatter. As we turned the final corner, the restaurant came into view. It wasn't just a place to eat. It was a palace of glass and steel, glowing like a diamond against the night sky. Golden letters shimmered above the grand entrance, spelling out the name that had become synonymous with prestige, wealth, and power in the city. The kind of place where billionaires signed contracts, celebrities dined in private, and political figures whispered deals over fine wine. My father's eyes widened in awe. We're eating here." His voice was almost a whisper, filled with disbelief. My mother, however, erupted in laughter. It wasn't the laughter of joy. It was the sharp, mocking laugh I had heard my whole life. "You must be out of your mind," she exclaimed. "Do you have any idea how much a single plate costs here? They won't even let you pass the lobby without a reservation. You'll humiliate yourself in front of everyone." Her words were meant to sting, but instead I looked at my father. His face reflected uncertainty, but also a flicker of hope. And that flicker was all I needed. I parked the car and stepped out, walking toward the entrance with calm confidence. My parents followed, though my mother's heels clicked angrily against the marble pavement. She whispered fiercely behind me, "If they throw us out, don't you dare expect me to defend you. I warned you about this nonsense." The doormen swung the towering glass doors open, and immediately, the aroma of luxury greeted us. Roasted truffles, aged wines, freshly baked artisan bread. Inside, the restaurant gleamed with chandeliers dripping in crystal, velvet chairs, and golden accents. The air itself seemed heavy with wealth. My mother muttered under her breath, "This is ridiculous." But even she couldn't hide the way her eyes darted around the place, drinking in the grandeur she had only ever dreamed of. We approached the reception desk. The maitre d', dressed immaculately in a black suit, was busy with another guest. But then, as his eyes lifted and landed on me, everything changed. His posture straightened, his expression softened, and in an instant, his professional smile transformed into one of genuine recognition. "Good evening, sir," he said warmly, bowing slightly. "Welcome back. We've been expecting you." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. My mother's mouth fell open. She whipped her head toward me, confusion flashing across her face. "What did he just call you?" she whispered, her voice trembling now, not with anger but with shock. The maitre d' didn't stop there. He gestured politely toward the lavish interior. "Please, sir, your private suite has been prepared exactly as you requested. If you and your guests will follow me, we'll ensure your evening is perfect." The other guests waiting at the reception desk turned their heads. Whispers rippled through the lobby. Who was this man the staff was greeting like royalty? Why were they being ushered in ahead of everyone else? My father blinked rapidly, struggling to process what he had just heard. My mother, however, was frozen in place. Her lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time in years, she looked powerless. I smiled faintly, not answering her yet. Instead, I nodded at the maitre d' and followed him as the staff hurried to open the golden doors leading deeper into the restaurant. My parents trailed behind me, caught between disbelief and curiosity. The night was only just beginning. Why were the staff treating me like royalty? And what secret was about to unfold in front of my mother's disbelieving eyes? The maitre d' led us past the glittering lobby, his steps crisp, his tone filled with respect. "Right this way, sir," he said, his voice smooth but tinged with deference, as though guiding a man of immense importance. The staff standing nearby paused in their tasks, their eyes following us with recognition. "Good evening, sir," one waiter said with a respectful bow. Another smiled warmly, It's good to see you again." A third hurried to clear our path, pulling out chairs for us as though we were royalty. Every gesture, every look, every word carried weight, and all of it was directed at me. My mother's eyes darted wildly around the room, trying to make sense of what she was witnessing. Her usual smug expression had been replaced by confusion, then disbelief, and now something closer to fear. Her lips parted as though she wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Finally she leaned toward me, her voice sharp but hushed. What is going on here? Why are they treating you like this?" I didn't answer her. Not yet. Instead, I kept walking with measured calm, my father quietly trailing behind us. He hadn't said a word, but his face was telling a story of its own. Wide eyes, furrowed brows, and the faintest spark of pride that he seemed afraid to fully embrace. The whispers started as soon as we passed the first row of tables. "Who is he?" one man murmured, his eyes following us. "That's him," another whispered. "The one who—" The rest of the words were lost in the hum of voices, but I could see the recognition spreading from table to table. Even the wealthiest guests, dressed in designer suits and gowns, straightened in their chairs, curious, cautious. Some nodded at me in acknowledgement. Others whispered to their companions, their eyes filled with intrigue. My mother noticed it too, and the color drained from her face. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. "This can't be happening." The maitre d' finally stopped in front of an ornate glass door at the far end of the dining hall. Etched into it were delicate golden vines that shimmered under the chandelier lights. With a gracious bow, he opened the door and gestured us inside. "Your private suite is ready, sir," he said. The room beyond was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls revealed the sparkling skyline outside. The table was covered in fine white linen, adorned with crystal glasses and golden cutlery. A chandelier of cascading crystals hung above, its light casting rainbows across the polished marble floor. My father gasped softly, unable to contain himself. This is incredible." His voice trembled with awe. But my mother couldn't move. She stood at the doorway, her hands trembling, her expression a storm of confusion and denial. "This is the owner's suite," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why are we here?" The maitre d' turned to her politely. "Because, madam, your son is the owner." The word struck like lightning. For a moment, silence engulfed the room. My mother's eyes widened, her mouth falling open in shock. She turned to me slowly, her face pale as marble. "You what?" she whispered. This is some kind of mistake." But the maitre d' only bowed once more before leaving us in the room. I took my seat at the head of the table, calm and composed, while the weight of the truth hovered in the air like a storm waiting to break. My father lowered himself into the chair opposite me, his hands shaking slightly. He didn't speak, but his eyes said everything. Disbelief, astonishment, and pride all tangled together. My mother, however, remained standing, her body stiff, her world collapsing around her. She had spent years reminding me that I was worthless, incapable, a failure. And now she was standing in the one place that proved every one of her words had been a lie. Still, she wasn't ready to surrender. "No," she said finally, her voice sharp with desperation. "This is some trick. You couldn't possibly. You're lying." I met her gaze, unflinching. "Am I?" The air grew heavier. My father leaned forward, his eyes searching mine, silently pleading for answers. My mother shook her head, refusing to accept what her eyes were already showing her. She wanted to believe this was impossible. But deep down, She knew the truth was about to unfold in a way she could no longer deny. Would I finally reveal the secret of how I became the owner, or let my mother drown in disbelief a little longer? The golden door clicked shut behind the maitre d', sealing us inside the owner's suite. The muffled hum of the dining hall faded, leaving only the soft clinking of glassware and the faint hum of city traffic beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. My father sat quietly at the far end of the table, his eyes wide, darting between me and the sparkling skyline outside. He looked like a man who had stumbled into another world, a world too rich, too polished, too grand to feel real. But my mother remained frozen at the door. Her hands were clenched into trembling fists, her chest rising and falling rapidly as though she couldn't breathe. 4 years she had defined reality, what was possible, what wasn't, who I could be, and who I would never become. But now, standing in a room that screamed luxury, a room she knew only belonged to someone of immense power, she looked like a queen watching her throne crumble to dust. "No," she whispered finally, shaking her head violently. "No. This isn't possible. This is some mistake." Her eyes snapped to me, sharp and desperate. "Tell me the truth. You tricked them, didn't you? You paid someone to do this. You can't be the owner. You can't." I leaned back in my chair, the chandelier above casting golden light across my face. For years I had dreamed of this moment, the day when her words of scorn would lose all power. The day when I could look her in the eye and know she had no control over me anymore. But I didn't answer her yet. Instead, I lifted the crystal glass in front of me and swirled the deep red wine inside. The motion was slow, deliberate, designed to test her patience. "Say something," she snapped, her voice cracking. My father shifted in his seat. He looked at her with quiet frustration before turning back to me. "Son," he said softly, his voice trembling with emotion, "please, just tell us what's happening. Is this real?" I met his eyes, and for the first time in my life, I saw something in them I had longed for. Not pity, not disappointment, but hope. Before I could answer, the door opened again. 2 waiters entered silently, carrying silver trays. They placed them carefully on the table. Dishes of roasted lamb glazed with rosemary honey, fresh truffle pasta, and an assortment of delicacies my mother had only ever seen in magazines. One waiter set down a leather-bound menu in front of me. Unlike my parents', mine contained no prices, only names of signature dishes. My mother's eyes widened as she noticed. Her voice cracked when she spoke. Why is his menu different from ours?" The waiter bowed slightly. "Because only the owner receives this menu, madam." The blood drained from her face. She staggered back a step, gripping the back of her chair for support. "No," she whispered again, her voice hollow. "No, this can't be true." The waiters poured wine into our glasses and left us once more in silence. The room seemed heavier now, filled with the weight of truth pressing down on her shoulders. I finally leaned forward, placing the glass gently on the table. "You've spent years telling me I couldn't succeed," I said quietly. "You told me I was too weak, too foolish, too broke to ever achieve anything. And yet, here we are." Her eyes snapped to mine, still blazing with denial, but I could see the cracks forming. Her certainty was unraveling. "I own this restaurant," I continued calmly. "Every wall, every chair, every crystal on that chandelier belongs to me." The words landed like thunder. My father gasped softly, covering his mouth with his hand. My mother's face twisted, a mixture of rage and disbelief, as though her world was collapsing brick by brick. "You're lying," she hissed, her voice trembling. You can't possibly," she trailed off, unable to finish. "Am I lying?" asked, leaning back once more. Her silence was answer enough. But I wasn't finished. Tonight wasn't just about revealing the truth. It was about showing her everything she had refused to believe, and making sure she never forgot it. Would my mother accept the truth of my ownership, or would she cling desperately to her pride, even as the evidence became undeniable? The food sat untouched, steaming delicacies filling the air with aromas of truffle, rosemary, and saffron. But no one lifted a fork. My father's hands rested on the table. His gaze locked on me with a mixture of awe and confusion. My mother, on the other hand, looked as if the ground beneath her feet had vanished. Her lips trembled as she finally broke the silence. "You're lying. You've tricked them. Maybe you borrowed money to pretend, or maybe someone here pities you. But there is no way you own this place." Her voice cracked, but her pride refused to collapse. She gripped her wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. I tilted my head, watching her with calm precision. "Do you remember the last time I tried to take you both out for dinner?" I asked softly. She frowned, caught off guard. "What does that have to do with?" "You humiliated me," I cut in sharply. "You laughed at the idea that I could afford anything more than cheap takeout. You made sure the entire family knew that I wasn't capable of handling money. You told me in front of everyone that I was destined to be a burden." Her mouth opened, but no defense came. My father looked down at the table, shame clouding his features. I continued, my voice calm but firm. "That night, I promised myself one thing. That one day, I would sit across from you in a place you couldn't possibly deny. A place so far above your imagination that even your pride couldn't shield you from the truth." My mother's cheeks flushed red. "You're speaking nonsense. You've always been dramatic. Even if you have some money now, it won't last. You've never had discipline. You've never had respect." I interrupted, raising a brow. "Power. Control over my own life." I leaned forward, my gaze piercing. "Maybe you never saw it, but I've had those things for years. Just because you were blind to it doesn't mean it wasn't there." The words hung in the air like smoke. My father shifted uncomfortably, but he didn't interrupt. His silence wasn't agreement with her anymore. It was curiosity, almost hunger for the truth. I softened my tone as I turned to him. "Dad, I know you've lived quietly. I know you've endured more than anyone realizes. But tonight, this dinner isn't just a meal. It's a gift to you. Because while Mom spent years telling me I wasn't enough, you never mocked me. You never crushed me, even when you didn't defend me. For that, you deserve more than she ever gave you." His eyes glistened with tears, his lips trembling. My mother's jaw clenched so tightly the veins in her temple bulged. "Stop this charade," she burst out, her voice breaking into a scream. "You can't humiliate me like this. I am your mother. You will not sit there and—" The door opened before she could finish. A manager stepped inside, carrying a leather folder. He bowed deeply, addressing me directly. "Sir, as per your standing instructions, we've arranged the live music ensemble for tonight. The violinists are ready to perform at your signal. Also," he placed the folder before me, "the quarterly profit report you requested. Congratulations again, sir. The numbers are extraordinary." He bowed once more, completely ignoring my stunned mother, before exiting as quickly as he'd come. The room fell silent again. My father stared at the folder with wide eyes. "Profit report," he whispered. You don't just own this restaurant. You run an entire business, don't you?" I didn't answer him right away. I simply slid the folder across the table toward him. His shaking hands opened it, scanning the figures inside. His eyes grew wider with every line, his breath quickening. Meanwhile, my mother looked on, her face pale, her lips trembling, her denial shattering piece by piece. "No," she whispered, barely audible. "No. This isn't possible." I leaned back in my chair, letting her words echo in the glittering silence of the suite. Then I smiled faintly. "This is only the beginning, Mother. How did I build this empire in secret? And what revelation would finally break my mother's last shred of denial?" My father's hands trembled as he flipped through the folder. Page after page showed neat columns of figures, growth charts, and profit margins. His lips parted, but no words came. He wasn't a businessman, yet even he could see the truth written in those numbers. This wasn't just survival. This was success. Across the table, my mother sat rigid, her knuckles white as she gripped her napkin. She looked like a queen watching her castle burn, powerless to stop the flames. "It's a trick," she whispered, her voice shaking. "These numbers are fake. They must be fake." I leaned forward, my tone calm but sharp. "Do you really think an entire staff would risk their jobs, their reputations, their futures? Just to trick you? No, Mother. This is real. Every number, every success, every ounce of progress, it's mine. Built with my hands, my sacrifices, my nights of silence while you mocked me." Her eyes darted wildly, searching for something to hold on to. But there was nothing left, only truth pressing against her denial like a tidal wave. I turned to my father. "Dad, you asked me how I did this. Do you remember the years when I would come home late? Sometimes not at all." He frowned, nodding slowly. "Your mother always said you were wasting time with friends, or avoiding responsibility." A bitter smile tugged at my lips. I wasn't wasting time. I was washing dishes, scrubbing floors, cutting vegetables until my fingers bled. I started at the bottom, in kitchens where no one even bothered to learn my name. But I didn't complain. I listened. I learned. Every insult became fuel. Every rejection made me hungrier. My mother scoffed, though her voice lacked strength. "You expect us to believe that scrubbing floors made you rich?" I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. "No, scrubbing floors gave me knowledge, humility, and connections. The chefs, the managers, the suppliers. I learned their struggles. I learned what worked and what didn't. And while you told me I was wasting my life, I was laying the foundation for something greater." Paused, my voice dropping lower. And then came the opportunity. My father leaned forward, his eyes wide. "What opportunity?" "The previous owner of this restaurant chain was drowning in debt," I explained. "Investors pulled out. The business was collapsing. No one believed it could survive. But I did. I had been working here for years, quietly saving, quietly planning. I knew its flaws. I knew how to fix them. I could see my mother struggling to breathe, as though each word I spoke cracked her armor further. "I partnered with a silent investor," I continued. "Together, we bought it for pennies compared to its worth. Everyone said it was doomed. But I rebuilt everything, the menus, the service, the atmosphere. I put my blood and soul into it. And now," I gestured to the chandelier above us, to the skyline beyond the glass. "This isn't just a restaurant. It's an empire in the making." My father's eyes glistened with tears. His lips trembled as he whispered, my son built this." For a brief moment, pride and love filled the space between us. But my mother broke it with a sharp laugh, high and hollow. "No, I don't care what you say. Someone must have handed this to you. You're not smart enough. You're not strong enough. You could never. Enough." The word thundered from my chest, louder than I had ever spoken in her presence. The room vibrated with it. For the first time she flinched. I leaned forward, my eyes locked onto hers. You spent your life convincing me I was nothing. But tonight you will see me for what I am. And if you can't accept it, then you will sit here and choke on your pride while the world applauds me. The silence that followed was electric. My father lowered his head, tears sliding down his cheeks. My mother's face twisted, torn between rage and fear. And then, just as she opened her mouth to spit more venom, there was a knock at the golden door. Swung open slowly. And the person who entered carried the one piece of evidence that would erase every last shred of her denial. Who walked through the door? And what proof would they bring that left my mother with no place left to hide? The golden door creaked open, and the soft glow from the chandelier spilled onto the marble hallway outside. My mother's eyes flicked nervously toward it, her lips already curling into a sneer as though preparing to deny whatever came next. But when the figure stepped inside, her expression froze. It was the general manager of the entire chain. A tall man in a tailored black suit. His presence carried authority. His sharp eyes swept across the table before landing on me. With a respectful bow he said, "Sir, I hope I'm not disturbing. But as per your instructions, I've brought the final ownership contracts for your review." He placed a sleek leather folder in front of me, embossed with the restaurant's golden crest. My father's breath caught, his gaze darting between the manager and the documents. But my mother, she turned pale, her chest rising and falling in panicked disbelief. The manager continued, his tone steady, professional. "Also, sir, the board of directors has confirmed next week's meeting. They'll be presenting you with the updated expansion proposals. Congratulations once again on the success of our newest branch in Dubai. The numbers are truly remarkable." My father gasped audibly. "Dubai." His trembling voice cracked. "You don't just own this one. You're running international branches?" The manager smiled faintly. "Indeed. This gentleman here," he gestured respectfully toward me, "is not only the owner of this establishment but also one of the youngest majority stakeholders in the chain. Every decision, every success we've had in the past few years has been under his leadership." The words hit the room like thunder. My father covered his mouth, tears welling in his eyes. His entire body shook with pride and shock. My mother, however, gripped the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles went white. "No," she whispered, her voice hollow. "No. This isn't possible." Her eyes darted to the manager, desperate, pleading. "You're lying. You've been told to say this, haven't you? He's not capable of this. He can't be." The manager frowned slightly, clearly puzzled. "Madam, I assure you, I would never lie about something of this nature. Every member of our staff knows who the true owner is." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. For the first time in my life I saw it, the collapse of her iron pride. The woman who had spent years towering over me, suffocating me with her scorn, was now crumbling in front of undeniable proof. I leaned forward slowly, my fingers brushing the ownership contract as I looked her in the eyes. "You told me I couldn't even afford to buy dinner, that I'd never be more than a failure. And yet..." I tapped the folder lightly. "This is who I am. Not the weak son you mocked, but the man who built an empire in silence while you laughed." My father's tears fell freely now, his voice trembling. "Sen, I don't even have words. I always believed you had more in you, but this..." He broke off, his voice cracking under the weight of emotion. My mother shook her head violently, her denial turning to rage. You think this makes you better than me. You think money makes you a man. You're still nothing. You'll always be nothing." Her words rang hollow, desperate, a last attempt to hold on to power that had already slipped from her grasp. The manager cleared his throat gently, looking uncomfortable. "Shall I have the ensemble begin their performance now, sir?" I nodded slowly, my eyes never leaving my mother. "Yes, let the music play." He bowed and left the suite, closing the golden door behind him. Moments later, the soft strains of violins filled the air, delicate notes dancing like whispers of victory. My mother sat stiff, trembling, her eyes locked on me with a mixture of hatred and fear. My father sat quietly, overwhelmed by pride and disbelief. And me. For the first time in my life, I felt the weight of power shift entirely into my hands. But tonight wasn't over. There was one more truth yet to be revealed, a truth that would shatter my mother's world completely. What final revelation would break my mother's pride once and for all, and leave my father with the birthday gift of a lifetime? The violins played softly, their melody flowing through the suite like a living heartbeat. My father sat quietly, his eyes glistening as he tried to absorb everything he had learned in the past hour. My mother, however, looked like a statue about to crack. Her face was pale, her lips pressed thin, and her eyes burned with a hatred that came from one place only: fear of losing control. "You think this makes you powerful," she hissed, her voice trembling. "You think owning some restaurants makes you better than me? You're still weak. Money doesn't change what you are." Her words didn't sting anymore. They were hollow, fragile echoes of the power she once had. I leaned forward, resting my hands on the table, my voice low but sharp. "You've spent your life defining me with your words. But tonight your words mean nothing. Because I didn't build this empire for you. I built it in spite of you." Her jaw clenched. "You ungrateful." "This isn't about you," I cut her off, my tone colder than ever. "This is about him." I turned to my father, whose hands trembled as he held his wine glass. His eyes widened when I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I placed it gently on the table in front of him. His brows furrowed as he reached for it, his fingers unsteady. He opened the lid slowly. Inside lay a glistening golden key, polished until it caught the chandelier light like fire. He blinked rapidly, confusion filling his face. What is this?" I smiled softly. "That, Dad, is the key to your new home. Place that's yours. Not rented. Not borrowed. Bought outright in your name. A home where you never have to feel small or controlled again." The glass in his hand slipped, shattering against the marble floor. Tears flooded his eyes as he covered his mouth with his trembling hand. You did this for me." I nodded, my throat tightening. "Everything I've built, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, it wasn't for her approval. It was for you. For the man who quietly endured years of bitterness just to keep this family afloat. You deserve peace, Dad. You deserve respect. And now you'll have it." He broke down completely, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. For the first time in my life, I saw him free, not from struggle, but from the chains my mother had wrapped around us both. My mother slammed her fists against the table, her voice breaking into a shrill scream. You dare give him everything while I sit here with nothing. I raised you. I made you. You owe me." I turned to her, calm and steady, my voice like steel. "I owe you nothing. You raised me with scorn, not love. You mocked my dreams, crushed my spirit, and told me I was worthless. And tonight you sit here powerless, while the staff you once thought above me bow at my feet. That is your legacy." her face twisted with rage, but behind it was something else, fear. The kind of fear that comes when you realize the control you've wielded your entire life is gone forever. I leaned back in my chair, raising my glass in a quiet toast. This dinner was never about proving myself to you. It was about giving him, I gestured to my father, the birthday he deserves, surrounded by dignity, not insults, by love, not fear. The violins swelled, their music filling the room like a victory anthem. My father wept openly, clutching the golden key to his chest. My mother sat frozen, trembling, her empire of control crumbling to dust before her eyes. And me. For the first time in my life I felt free. Free from her shadow. Free from her poison. Free to stand tall, not as the failure she always claimed I was, but as the man I had fought to become. The staff entered quietly then, carrying a cake unlike any my family had ever seen. 3 tiers adorned with gold leaf and fresh roses, lit by sparkling candles. The maitre d' set it before my father with a bow. "Happy birthday, sir," he said respectfully. And in that moment, my father smiling through tears, the staff bowing, the violins soaring, I knew the truth. This was not just his birthday. It was our rebirth. My mother told me I couldn't afford my father's birthday dinner. But when the staff greeted me as the owner, the truth became undeniable. I had built something greater than her scorn, and given my father the greatest gift of all, freedom.
Now if you like my content, then subscribe my channel.